Hey, and thanks for joining me on another episode of Straitjacketwhiterabbit. I'll be your host, Adam. It's good to be back, everybody. Unfortunately, I was down for a while. I had the flu. So I am back and ready to get into this, and we're going to start today off with the JFK Assassination. For those of you living under a rock for the last couple decades, or quite frankly since the 60s, in 1963, at approximately 12:30 in the afternoon, November 22nd, John F. Kennedy was shot in Dealey Plaza in Dallas, Texas. Now, presidential assassinations aside, they do happen in our country. This one is a conspiracy because of a lot of reasons. There's a lot of different reasons, you guys, that people believe in this conspiracy. And this is what we're going to root out today. We're going to decide for ourselves. We're going to take a look at some of the evidence. Now, the man who allegedly shot John F. Kennedy's name was Lee Harvey Oswald. Lee Harvey Oswald was a Marine. He was, by all accounts, not a great Marine. He was an average, okay Marine. He wasn't a great shot, wasn't anything special. Now, Lee Harvey Oswald, backtracking before the Kennedy assassination, first was stationed at a CIA base in Japan. Now, why is it important that it was a CIA base? Because a lot of people believe that Lee Harvey Oswald was either a low-level operative of the CIA or was recruited by the CIA as a low-level operative to become a patsy for the JFK assassination. Now, why do I leap straight to patsy? A couple of reasons. Number one, you don't put a man who's only been ranked as a marksman, which is the lowest you can go, by the way, when it comes to military sharpshooting. He wasn't a very good shot, you guys. You know, if you're looking to get someone who's going to go after the president, most people would assume you'd grab the guy with the top tier shooting skills, not the guy who's pretty much bottom of the barrel, barely passing. So he wasn't a good shot. He was based at a CIA base in Japan. Now, after his base deployment in Japan, he actually defected to the Soviet Union for a while, you guys, for a couple years. Next, he turns up with his new wife, and they move to Dallas, his wife that he had met while in the Soviet Union. Marina Oswald was, by all accounts, a normal woman. She wasn't KGB or anything crazy like that. So what flipped in his brain between the CIA base and what happened in Dallas, Texas? Well, another reason people believe the CIA was involved was because of the involvement of a man named George de Mohrenschildt. George de Mohrenschildt, you guys, let's not have any mistakes about who he was. He is a known CIA handler. He had known connections to the CIA, you guys. There's no ifs, ands, or buts or arguments about that now. Now, decades ago, there was argument whether or not he was CIA. That's been put to bed. He was a CIA handler. George de Mohrenschildt made friends with Lee Harvey Oswald literally months before the assassination took place. Just under a year, I believe it was. This is a well-educated, high up as far as the opinions of our military, our CIA, he had a lot of government connections. Like I said, he was a rich, millionaire, well-educated man. And he befriended a very lower class white male in the middle of Dallas that they had no real connection to whatsoever, other than the fact that Oswald was stationed at a CIA base in Japan. Now, proponents against this theory will say, well, people meet with different backgrounds all the time. It doesn't mean they were in cahoots or anything. And you know what? I can understand that if this was the only CIA connection in the JFK assassination, but quite frankly, it wasn't the only CIA connection. We will get into that as well with George H.W. Bush, and a few other connections. Now, the problem with his connection with George de Mohrenschildt is later on, George de Mohrenschildt wrote some letters to George W. Bush as president when he was president. And George H.W. Bush's letter he received from George de Mohrenschildt was almost, it was begging for help, you guys. He had in the letter he talks about how he thinks he has spoken too much about Lee Harvey Oswald and how he feels like a net is closing around him. And guys, within a year of this letter, he was found suicided with a shotgun blast to the head. I do not for a minute believe that he did this himself, although it was listed as a suicide. In the letter, it says that he wrote to the president, it says that he was worried that he had spoken too much about Lee Harvey Oswald and the net was closing in around him and he was in fear for his life. Doesn't sound to me like a guy who didn't have anything to hide. It sounds to me like a guy who talked a little too much about something he wasn't supposed to speak about, and the government, oh Danny boy, killed him. Now, is there any proof of George de Mohrenschildt's being murdered? I mean, not anything anyone can bring to court. You know, these people who do wet work for our government, you guys, they're not stupid. These, most of the time, you'd have no idea. A lot of them look like accidents. A lot of these deaths look like suicides or accidents or freak diseases. Bottom line is, if they want to take you out, they're going to take you out. Now, hopping off of George de Mohrenschildt for a minute, we're going to skip to another CIA link to this case. A man by the name of E. Howard Hunt. Those of you who don't know who E. Howard Hunt is, in the 50s, E. Howard Hunt led a CIA operation at the failed Bay of Pigs for Cuba. They were going to assassinate Fidel Castro. After they completely blundered that operation, they were looking to, I'm not going to say settle a score, but they were looking to put things into place and make up for the fact that they had screwed up so royally. A lot of people believe that's when they were tapped to take out John F. Kennedy. Now, why would the CIA want Kennedy removed? Is because a lot of people believe it's for several different reasons. Some people believe it's because John F. Kennedy was very strong on his belief that the whole UFO subject should be declassified to the public. A lot of other people believe it had to do with John F. Kennedy's opposition to the, we'll call it the shadow government. He was very anti-large government. He was against a lot of government interests at the time. And a lot of people felt that the CIA just needed him out of the way. Now, E. Howard Hunt, okay, there's a photo, you guys. You can look up this photo of these three tramps, these three homeless men that were being rounded up after the assassination attempt on JFK. After the assassination of JFK. One of these tramps looks, identical to E. Howard Hunt. And even his own children have seen this photo and pulled their father out of the lineup and said, that was my dad. That's totally my dad. On top of which, for years, E. Howard Hunt denied any involvement in this. You have to understand, E. Howard Hunt was he was a spook, you guys, in the most definition way you could think of a CIA spook. He was the guy that went out and did wet work for our government, who went out and killed people for our government for a living. This was a part of his job. This man kept the lid on what he had as far as involvement with the Kennedy assassination until his deathbed. Literally about a week before he died, he recorded hours of recordings with his son, admitting to what he called the big event, the murder of John F. Kennedy, and how he was placed on standby for the assassination on John F. Kennedy. Okay, so now we have a second CIA connection. Well, third, actually, I'm sorry. The base, George de Mohrenschildt, E. Howard Hunt. We're not done yet. Now, the day that the president was assassinated, there was another future president and future head of the CIA in Dallas at the time. Could be coincidence. George H.W. Bush. was in Dallas the night before and the morning of the assassination attempt and the successful assassination of John F. Kennedy. Now, why is this important? 3 different times, George H.W. Bush was asked by separate people on separate occasions where he was during the Kennedy assassination. All 3 times, he said he did not remember where he was during the Kennedy assassination. Now, for those of you who've ever lived through major events in this country, and when I say major, I'm talking about assassinations, 9/11, things like this, they're not really easily forgotten ideas, okay? Or they're not ideas. They're not easily forgotten subject matter. I can tell you exactly where I was and what I was doing when 9/11 happened, when I first heard about the attacks. I mean, literally, I can tell you exactly what I was doing. This man couldn't remember where he was, and the fact that he was in the same city that the president was killed sounds suspicious to me, guys. Gets better. The morning of, he flies or drives, we're unclear on that, a short distance to a city of Tyler, Texas, where at a Kiwanis meeting, he stands up and informs the crowd that he had just been informed the president had been shot. He then goes to a phone, calls the FBI, and tells them, I may have an idea of, he identifies as himself, George H.W. Bush, and he says, I may have an idea of who shot the president. I was in Houston and some young Republican was threatening the president. Why would he call the FBI the next day and say these things when he was in Dallas the day before? A lot of people believe what he was doing was creating an alibi and creating the appearance of trying to be helpful to the investigation. Seems to me that he helped the Warren Commission cover-up of the JFK assassination and ends up being the head of the CIA and later president. I don't think this is a coincidence. I don't think that you could be in the same town a president was assassinated in on the same day and then claim you don't remember where you were. So let's move to the actual assassination as it takes place. 6th floor of the Texas Book Depository. 6 floors up. That's pretty high, guys. Okay, I mean, especially when you're, taking into account wind and shot distance, obstructions, things like that. You have a guy who's not a very good shot, stationed 6 floors up in a non-secured building on a major route that the president's taking, which is another weird thing. Nobody was in these buildings. No Secret Service were in these buildings, clearing them out, checking them for people. Like I said, the security detail on this was absolutely deplorable. So 6 floors up, and he takes 3 shots from a rifle. The rifle he used was a Mannlicher Carcata. It's garbage. It's a bolt-action rifle that you have to bolt load after each shot, ramming it in and pulling it back. This gun has been torn apart by skeptics of this assassination for decades, you guys. The thing was a piece of crap. Every single person that I've heard of, if you know one that succeeded, let me know. But every single person who has tried to replicate the distance, shot, height, everything of the JFK assassination shots have failed. Expert marksmen have failed this. Okay, expert shots have failed this. The Warren Commission's own reenactment, you guys, failed. It didn't work. This man supposedly got off 3 shots in a little over 6 seconds, you guys, like 6.3 seconds or something like that. 6.3 seconds. You have to understand, with a bolt-action rifle, 6.3 seconds is a long time I'm sorry, not a long time. I misspoke. 6.3 seconds is not a long time, you guys. It goes by in a blink of an eye. And like I said, this is a moving target in a car. There's trees off to one side that are slightly obstructing view. All kinds of things. And you're telling me that in 6.3 seconds, this man got off the shots he got off. Maybe he was lucky. I don't know. I don't believe he hit him. I don't believe he fired a shot, let alone didn't hit him. All of the witnesses, without exception, that have gone on record, none of them said anything about the book depository, you guys. Nobody said shots came from the book depository and that's what drew my attention. There's a man who is literally on the freaking field right next to where this happened. Okay, hold on one second. What was his name? Bill Newman. There we go. Sorry, guys. Bill Newman. Bill Newman, his 2 kids, and his wife are literally seen in the famous JFK Assassination video. They are the people who are laying on the grass right near the grassy knoll. They're laying one on top of the other, like each one's laying on top of their kids, kind of protecting them from gunfire in the video. These people were like 15 to 20 feet from the fatal headshots of John F. Kennedy. Their reports were taken, and they were never even contacted by the Warren Commission, you guys. These are people who were feet away from the president while he was shot. And they were not even asked to go before the Warren Commission and give a statement. Who thinks that's normal? I mean, you're the last one to see the president alive. You're feet away from him as the shots ring out. Yet nobody wants to really talk to you. Police take down your report. That's it. Nothing. You've never been contacted since then. That doesn't seem right. And Bill Newman said him and his wife agreed that where they heard the shots were from behind them, up the hill where the grassy knoll was. When asked, did he notice anything at the book depository, he said, no, I had no reason to look at the book depository. The shots came from behind. Well, if the shots came from behind Bill Newman on the grassy knoll, there's no way the shots could have came from a Texas book depository window 6 stories up and in the opposite direction. There's absolutely no way that can occur, you guys. Scooting past the fact that they just completely blanket denied this man to be a witness at the Warren Commission. Then you have how they got their description of Lee Harvey Oswald. One of the weirdest things in this case, in my opinion. A man on street level is the only witness who gave the description of the shooter, supposed shooter, Lee Harvey Oswald. He said he was a white male, early 30s, 5'10" tall, skinny build. Answer me one question, if you can. I'm a pretty observant guy. I've done security my entire life. I know a lot about how to size people up. But explain to me how, good gosh almighty, this man managed to identify an assassin's height 6 stories up, looking up into a window, 6 stories above himself. You can't. It's not possible. It's not feasible. Unless you were just the world's luckiest guesser. And why would you guess on something like that? He didn't guess. He said that man was 5'10", white, early 30s, skinny. He gave a great description of Lee Harvey Oswald from 6 stories below him. At a glance. It's not like Lee Harvey Oswald was hanging around. He fired the shots, left the rifle at the scene, hopped a bus, hopped a taxi, went across town, past train stations, to a we'll call it a flop house for lack of a better term. You guys, he stayed in a single room with his wife at a flop house, or I know there's another term for the housing, they called it back then. It was basically where a lot of people shared different rooms of one main house. They shared the kitchen together, but they all had their own bedrooms. Anyways, after he gets home, he supposedly retrieves the revolver and goes on foot till he runs into an officer that he then plugs with the revolver. Does he run, take a train away from that? He just murdered 2 people now, supposedly. No. What does he do? He walks to a movie theater, you guys. The famous theater. He walks in, sits down by himself, and that is where he is found and arrested. How did they find him? Nobody really knows who called it in. It was never, ever disclosed who actually made the phone call that let them know he was at this theater. Well, why is that important? You guys, it sounds a lot to me like this was an operation, a CIA operation that went sideways, and he was trying to connect with his contacts to find out what happened. You don't kill 2 people and just go sit in the movie theater and be like, I'm chilling here with my popcorn. What? I didn't do it. You get out of Dodge. This man went past train stations, past airports. Why was he chilling in a movie theater just waiting for something? A lot of people believe that was where he was supposed to meet his CIA contacts or his contacts if something were to have went wrong. And a lot of people believe this is where they cut him loose. They said, thanks for being the patsy. We appreciate it. Here you go. Now, moving to some more evidence on the actual shooting. You guys, we've all seen the video. If you haven't seen the video, go look it up. Kennedy's head goes back into the left, okay? Back into the left. That means the shot came from forward and to the right. I don't make the rules. Watch anybody who gets shot in the friggin' head or anywhere else. Their body moves according to where the bullet came from. Okay? If you get shot in the back, you don't go backwards. You go forwards. Okay? If you get shot in the front, you go backwards. This is the way it works. Okay? I don't make these rules. Kennedy's head goes back into the left. Now explain to me why his head goes back and left if he was shot from up and behind. Up means your head would go down, and behind you'd go forward. Seems a little bit odd to me. But as usual, our government has an explanation for everything. The explanation here, the magic bullet theory. Literally, I could not make this up. Magic bullet. Our government using a term to explain a presidential assassination, and in the term, they use the word magic. Magic bullet theory. Look it up. It's used to explain how one of those bullets could have caused all the damage to Kennedy and the man in front of him. It's absurd. It is the most absurd ballistics evidence I've ever heard. And if you were to try to pull that in any court of law today, you would fail miserably and be going to jail for murder. You cannot make this up. They got away with this in public. The magic bullet theory, you guys, look it up. Now, the magic bullet theory was made up or invented or surmised by a man who was Arlen Specter. We all guess what kind of a career bump in the government Arlen Specter had after that. He had a good one, a nice little bump up the ladder. George H.W. Bush. We all know what happened to him. He became the leader of the CIA and of the free world when he became president. Everybody seems in on this. Even Gerald Ford, you guys, future President Gerald Ford, admitted later on that he had changed the description of John F. Kennedy's wounds so that it would more plausibly fit the description of the magic bullet theory. He changed the freaking description of an assassination wound to the president. How is that not evidence tampering? Anybody else did that? Prison. Guantanamo Bay, we'd be waterboarding you. Gerald Ford does it, he becomes president. I mean, it gets deeper and deeper as you look into this, guys. I mean, everybody seems to have had a hand in this, and everyone who seemed to have had a hand in it had a miraculously long and fruitful career with our government. Now, putting aside the magic bullet theory, which is just absurdly ridiculous, you guys, going back to E. Howard Hunt, like I said, this man recorded a deathbed confession that he was part of this assassination group that was planning on taking out the president. That enough should be enough to open an inquiry. But no, we're never going to hear that. Even whenever I don't care if they declassify everything about John F. Kennedy, I guarantee you, we will never hear them come out and say, yeah, we had your president killed because he was getting in the way of our interests. Okay, our government's never going to admit that. So any of these rumors of, they're going to declassify this and that, no, they're not, you guys. You're never going to hear the truth. The truth is there were a lot of hands in the till that were going to prosper by John F. Kennedy being dead and it being covered up. I'm sorry, I'm having a blank. There was something else I wanted to bring up on this before I went to the next subject, and I kind of lost my train of thought. I apologize. Okay, so the famous picture with Lee Harvey Oswald and the newspaper and the rifle. Lee Harvey Oswald, for a man who went and basically gave up and sat in a movie theater until he was arrested, went through a lot of work, you guys, to do some of the weird stuff he did for this assassination. He took a photo before the actual assassination with a newspaper and his rifle. Just a photo with him and his rifle. Had his wife take the picture. She confirmed to the press that she's the one who took that picture. Well, who buys a rifle under an assumed name, by the way? Both the rifle and the pistol were purchased by mail order by an assumed identity. It wasn't his real name. Well, let's see. Once again, kind of sounding a little CIA operative-y, especially for back then. He's an ex-military dude. There would have been nothing suspect about him buying a rifle or a handgun. So why the name change? Just seems odd to me, you guys. I mean, this man takes pictures with himself with a rifle. And his wife said she got the impression he was told to take these pictures. She doesn't know by who or why. But even Oswald's wife says she believes he was ordered to take these pictures because he had a very important tone when he was telling her, I have to get these pictures taken. Does anyone else find it a little weird that he's posing with the murder weapon and the newspaper and everything before the Kennedy assassination? Like, yeah, it's me. Someone who doesn't intend on getting caught doesn't do that. Unless they're ordered to. You're in the CIA, you don't say no. They tell you to go do something, you do it. This man was a trained Marine Corps soldier who was trained at a CIA base. And a lot of people tried to go with the brainwashing route, and I'll tell you why I'm not in favor of the brainwashing route. Okay, yes, I do believe that brainwashing is possible. No, I absolutely do not believe he was brainwashed. I believe he believed he was doing a legitimate program for the CIA. I believe he thought it was a legitimate operation. He was just not smart enough to see the strings behind the set that were pulling him in the way of being a patsy. We're never going to find out who the real shooter was. They're gone in the wind. Okay, whoever was on that grassy knoll is gone. You'll never hear their name. It'll never come out. I promise you that much. But I firmly to this day with all of my heart believe that Lee Harvey Oswald was not only set up, but he was set up and then assassinated himself. You guys, most people don't even know the full story of what happened to Lee Harvey Oswald. This is how weird this case gets. When they arrest Lee Harvey Oswald, they take him to the local police station. I believe it was 2 days later. Okay, this is a man who killed the president, you guys. You figure lock and key, tight security. You know, he wouldn't be getting phone calls. He wouldn't be getting moved around freely. He would be on lockdown, right? I mean, he tried to kill. I mean, he didn't try to kill. He killed the president and he killed a police officer. Yeah, apparently not so much. Because a man by the name of Jack Ruby, who of his own admission and the admission of his doctors was paranoid. He had a severe case of paranoia. He believed that people were, certain people were very anti-Jewish. And he had conspiracy theories of his own, supposedly, on why the president was assassinated. This man supposedly just walked in, you guys, to an alleyway entrance to the basement of the police department. Walked up, pulled out a gun and shot Lee Harvey Oswald once before he was stopped. I mean, don't get me wrong, okay? I understand this was 1963, okay? I get it. But you're telling me a man walked into an unprotected side entrance in an alley to a police department with a gun, walked up to a man who had just killed a president and a police officer with nobody stopping him, pulled out a gun and shot him. Does that not sound like a setup to anybody else? Like, hey, you're sick with cancer, which he was. We'll take care of your family and their bills. All you got to do is kill this guy and say it was because he was a traitor who killed the president. You already suffer from paranoia. You've got it medically diagnosed. We'll just pay you off and you take care of our problem and we'll help you out in some way. Because I wholeheartedly believe that's the way pretty much the conversation went. This man didn't come into the police station of his own accord off of some crazy separatist conspiracy theory about attacking Jewish people. This man was sent to the police department to kill the assassin before this could hit a trial. Because I would have loved to hear what Lee Harvey Oswald said in a trial. Your Honor, I was told to do this by my boss, so the head of the CIA, or whoever gave him the orders. Because I do not believe that he would have just went down for the assassination of the president without any words being said. But no, the powers that be were determined that we were not going to have the full story, and Lee Harvey Oswald was murdered in a police station 2 days after an assassination of the president. It's not coincidence. It's not divine intervention. It's not coincidence. It's not, providence. This was set up. This was orchestrated. This was planned out, and it went off without a hitch as far as the government's eyes are concerned, because they pulled this over 40 years ago and nobody said a word. Conspiracy theories have their little theories. We all talk about what we think happened. But there's no proof, and no proof is ever going to come to light of this. Why don't you guys go down in the comments? Let me know why you think he was taken out. Was it because of the UFO information he wanted released? Was it because he had information on people in the government like Nixon and Ford that he was going to bring to light? Let me hear what you guys think about this. Also, if there's any information I haven't spoken about the JFK assassination or any theories I haven't brought up, let me know. I love hearing about this stuff, you guys. I'm going to be doing another video tomorrow. I believe I'm going to drop it on the dangers of advanced technology in today's world. the AI and robot takeover of our world. Stay tuned to another episode of Straitjacketwhiterabbit. As always, I'm your host, Adam. It's been a pleasure having you guys here. I love you all. And good thoughts, good hearts, and I hope everyone stays safe. Till next time, thanks for joining me.